You're listening to In Kap We Trust for the Always Next Year Podcast Studio Network. You can find the team on our Twitter at ANYP Podcast or on our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. And now, to bring us in, the Jackdaws.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back, hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
No. 1 foot in, 1 foot out, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. We are double dutching here on In Kap We Trust. Is Kapler the manager? Is he not? Is Klentak going to be here? Is he not? We have no idea whatsoever. I am your host, Shane, and I am joined, as always, by Rob. Rob, sir, how are you?
I'll be better if the Phillies actually make a decision on their manager as opposed to kind of holding us all in limbo here.
I agree. We are, I think, the only team in baseball right now who had a manager who was kind of on the fence as to whether or not they were going to be returning or not, that didn't make the decision, either leading into their final game or right after that game or on Monday. And here we are recording on Wednesday, and the Philadelphia Phillies still have not had or given a definitive response as to what is the status of not only Gabe Kapler and his staff, but Matt Klentak at this point, Andy MacPhail. Like, we don't know what's going on. It seems like Middleton is going to, the more, and we see tweets about this, so it does seem like the longer this goes, the more and more likely that Middleton would be to kind of clean house. So Jack Fritz tweeted that. Salisbury kind of alluded to the possibility of that. And we're seeing it all over on Twitter right now from different people that cover the team and different people who have respected opinions of the team. What do you think is the most likely scenario at this point? Do you think that maybe Kapler stays and Klentak goes? Do you think that Klentak stays and Kapler goes? Do you think that Middleton is just saying, fuck it, I got to start over? Like, what do you think is the most likely scenario?
I think the most likely scenario is that Klentak stays at least for another season and Kapler is the one who goes. But if Klentak is the one who's kind of, putting pressure on everyone to keep Kapler around, then maybe they both go. I think that this is the situation where John Middleton, he needs to strengthen his spine a little bit. He needs to go out there and, as opposed to being the owner who just kind of lets things happen under his nose, he needs to be a more involved owner, like a Jeffrey Lurie type, like a Mark Cuban type, and go out there and just make the decisions and do what he feels needs to be done. So I think that the way as it stands right now, I think Kapler is the one who's going to be gone. But I would not be surprised if both Kapler and Klentak are gone.
See, it fascinates me. We hear it all the time. GMs only get so many managerial hires. And everything is kind of this direct feed of what the front office and their vision for this team is going to be. And they get Klentak in place, and he's this very analytically driven. And look, I'm in support of analytics. I'm not quite as low on it as most people here in Philadelphia are. I actually like what they provide for this game and in this new wave of baseball. But there's been some really damning things that have come out, both in athletic articles from Megan Montero and Matt Gelb, I think it was, with the pitching staff and the way that they handled things, Kapler and Young. Jim Salisbury is kind of come out in the latest At the Yard podcast with Corey Seidman, and Ricky Patalico was the third on that one. And so much has been built on trying to integrate the Philadelphia Phillies from a completely non-analytically driven organization under Ruben Amaro and his managers and his scouting departments to a now we are basically all analytical. Like, we want all the information. We want to use all the information. And I think one of the most interesting things that I have read or heard from any reporting over the last couple weeks in regards to analytics and the Phillies really make me question what direction this organization is going to go in this offseason, because I don't think anyone has a goddamn clue.
I don't think they have a clue.
And that's what I'm saying. So Salisbury said, at a certain point, he was interviewing players and pitchers throughout this current season, and he was asking about their approach to analytics and all of the new information that comes across their, not their desk, but across their locker and all their pregame and pre-series information and meetings and things of the sort. And one of the overwhelming responses that he would get from these players in this clubhouse is, stop fucking with us. That's amazing to me. So all these other organizations are finding ways to integrate all this information, and the Philadelphia Phillies are seemingly doing the same thing. And now Salisbury is kind of putting it in perspective for all of us. This is the thing that first of all, I think, Jesus, blanking on his name, morning show host.
Angelo?
Thank you. Angelo Cataldi. I wanted to say Howard because he's just as much of a weenie. But no. But Angelo Cataldi, actually Howard too, because he sits there and says analytics from analytics and all his crap. But it's Salisbury's thoughts and interview and everything that he kind of had to say is almost confirming the fears of everyone at this point and saying that, no, they're all analytical and like no baseball gut feeling. There's nothing to go with there and no emotion. It's just, this is what it says to do. And I don't know if that was Gabe Kapler. I don't know if that was Matt Klentak. I don't know if that was coming down all the way from John Middleton, honestly. Like, I don't know where this, we're only doing it this way, is coming from.
I think it's coming from Klentak personally.
If that is the case, you cannot allow him to have a hand in anything going forward. You absolutely cannot. Look, Garrett Cole was good in Pittsburgh. Like, he was good. He got to a smart organization who found the ways to best utilize him and then allowed him to pitch the way that he needed to pitch to be successful. He is freaking filthy. Justin Verlander totally revitalized out there in Houston. Honestly, a little bit towards the back end of his time in Detroit as well, but he certainly struggled, and he didn't know that his career was going to keep going. Smart organizations find ways to utilize that information, but they don't make it the be-all and end-all, which right now, this was something I never believed, but it's kind of hard to discredit now when guys like Salisbury are putting it out there, that it feels like, and these players feel like, there is no more, this is what we're seeing and watching. There's no more eye test. There's no more feel. It's, this is the fucking information. That scares the hell out of me, and I don't know where that comes from. Like I said, I don't know if it's Kapler. I don't know if he's just the pawn for Klentak. I don't know if Klentak is just the pawn for Middleton. I don't know where it starts, but wherever it does, something's got to change. This is a fascinating offseason that we're about to endure. We're going to sit there and we have a manager and his entire coach's staff in limbo. We don't know what's going on with the GM. We don't know what John Middleton wants to do or how involved he will or will not be in this year's approach for different high ticket, high dollar free agents, the Garrett Coles, the Anthony Rendones. We don't know what's going on. We have to replace an entire bullpen. We need 3 or 4 starting pitchers. We need a third baseman. We possibly need a shortstop or second baseman. We don't know what's going on. Gene Segura may be on the move at this point. It's insane. This is reality TV in its finest in the sports world. Watching this Philadelphia Phillies team for this off season. So how we've talked about this before. We talked about this during the what the hell were we on? LeBron James. I couldn't remember which segment we were talking this on. So way back in the TJ's One of Us, before LeBron went to LA, and we had all the billboards going up for LeBron James, and everyone wanted LeBron James here in Philadelphia. Not me, by the way. Hate that guy. But totally lying. I did want him here. I do hate him, but
hindsight's probably better they didn't come.
Who knows? I don't know.
But,
I mean, I agree right now, but
another topic for another show.
Definitely. I'm sure Scott will bring it up on TJ's One of Us. Scott, by the way, really nice job this week on TJ's One of Us. Really, really good show with him and AJ, Andrew, whatever we're going to call him, one of our ANYP writers. But we sat there and we said, man, you need your house in order to attract a superstar like LeBron James. You need your house in order to attract a middle-of-the-road type of guy, role player, in any freaking sport. If you're Garrett Cole right now, if you're Anthony Rendon, why the hell would you choose Philadelphia? If you don't know who the hell you're answering to as a manager, you don't know who your GM is, You don't know what the status of the president of baseball operations is or what they even do. This is maddening. They need to figure this shit out fast. That's terrifying to me. What is your thought on if you were an Anthony Rendon? Is Philadelphia a place that you'd even waste your time with right now?
Well, the Phillies have money to offer, which money always talks, let's be honest. But if I'm Anthony Rendon or if I'm Garrett Cole, I'm looking at it and I'm seeing John Middleton as an owner who has a lot of money, but maybe isn't super knowledgeable about the actual sport itself. Maybe he kind of lets Klentak do things under his nose that he doesn't really know what's going on. And then I look at Matt Klentak and I see an analytics guy who's completely 100% driven by analytics, who probably doesn't even know how to use the eye test to judge a player. And then I see Gabe Kapler, who's, I think he's a pawn for everything that Klentak does. Yeah, I see a lot of instability within this organization. I see some guys who probably don't really know what they're doing. At least don't know how to build a championship contending team. So yeah, that turns me off. The only reason that I would come to Philadelphia right now to play for the Phillies is the money and the chance to look at some of the talent that they have on the roster right now, getting to play alongside the Bryce Harpers of the world and some of the younger guys that the Phillies have coming up through the system. That's about it. If I'm making that decision purely based on the front office and the coaching staff, I'm staying away.
What do you think the mood is like if they say, for argument, and this is what I would prefer. So let's get this one out of the way. I get asked this question a lot because everyone knows I'm a Cap supporter. Obviously, I named the podcast in Kap We Trust. I think that he's always had one hand tied behind his back. I feel as though this was a message that was constantly being put down or sent down from Klentak or from whomever, that this is how they envisioned running this organization. And as a rookie manager last year, it was essentially, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, sir, no, sir. It's just, I'm going to do what I am told. I'm going to be the pawn of whomever is, dictating those orders. I think Kapler's a very, very smart guy. And I think that as a former player, it doesn't matter how analytically driven he may have been as an individual, he has been alongside, shoulder to shoulder, sharing the field with, sharing lineup cards with teammates for over a decade in this sport. He understands that not every player is going to fit one mold and fit one thing. And yet, here he was attempting to make a lot of people fit one freaking thing. It didn't ever really make sense to me. I always felt like he kind of had it one hand tied behind his back, whether it be the fact that he has to coach a particular way, he has to make decisions a particular way, his message needs to be a particular type of message, or his GM didn't get him a freaking pitching staff at all. Like, he has never really had the full complement or support of those who are above him, in my opinion. I would be totally fine entering next season with Gabe Kapler, provided that Chris Young is nowhere near this team. Personally, I hate Chris Young. But I would be totally fine with Gabe Kapler as the manager and Klentak not here. I would like, similarly to how Chuck Fletcher kind of came in. Chuck Fletcher, it wasn't necessarily going to be his immediate decision to fire Dave Haxtell. So we're going to see how this thing plays out. Obviously, shit didn't work out. Like, maybe we only get 2 weeks of Gabe Kapler next year, and whomever this new GM is says, nope, I've seen enough. I'm good. I know who I want to go with right now. Okay, fine. I think it's okay to go into next season with Gabe Kapler so long as Matt Klentak is not a part of the Philadelphia Phillies organization. Are you okay with that philosophy, or are you more so, I need them both gone, let's just scrap it?
Honestly, I'm not going to throw everything in Kapler's direction. I'm not going to throw all the blame on him. But partially because of the managers who are available right now, I think that you gotta part ways with Kapler. You got Joe Madden out there who's been to 2 World Series. He's won one of them. He knows how to manage in a big market, having won a World Series in Chicago. You got Joe Girardi out there who I just got a notification that came out, him saying that he wants to manage again. He specifically mentioned his ties to Chicago, but I think that he would be open to managing anywhere that gives him an offer. He's a guy who won a World Series in New York, which is the biggest market in all of sports. Obviously, we remember it because he beat us. But, yeah, given the managers who are available right now, even Clint Hurdle, who...
Don't want him anywhere near us.
I mean, he hasn't managed in a big market, but he's managed to be relatively successful with the teams that he has had in small markets. He went to a World Series with Colorado. I think he's their manager that year. And then he took Pittsburgh to the playoffs a few times. I'm not a big fan of him. I'm turned off by the fact that he hasn't managed in a big market before, and I think that's a big thing. But I wouldn't be totally opposed to having him. But yes, especially with Madden and Girardi available, I think it's time for the Phillies to part ways with Gabe Kapler and go with a proven manager.
So people are it's crazy. A few weeks ago, when the Joe Madden things first started to kind of surface, people were very on board, us included. A lot has kind of come out, and a lot's been now reported, and it's almost changed the tone and narrative of the city and the way that they would receive Joe Madden. A few weeks ago, before it was a real talk point, I had said if the Cubs truly fall off, I feel like he's a guy who he began his pursuit with the Cubs, very similar situation than that of what he would be inheriting here in Philadelphia. And I feel like, hey, he's written this book before. We should get at least one with him. I don't know how much more we'll get, but we should get at least one. I was very on board with it. With all of the additional reporting that comes out and his quirkiness and in his ways of, I don't want to say alienating certain players in his clubhouses, but he kind of does. I don't know that I'm quite as on board with Joe Madden as I was a few weeks ago. And I don't know if that's just because I'm emotionally reacting to all the pieces that I'm reading recently, or if I'm tuned off from what this massive analytical approach may be. Has your approach kind of changed with him in terms of what we now read versus what, now that it's a real possibility, versus what we talked about a few weeks ago? No.
I've always seen Joe Madden as kind of a baseball version of Peter Laviolette. And in other words, he's a guy who he'll do a great job for a few years, and then after those few years up, he'll start to lose the locker room a little bit. Maybe players will be less inclined to go all out for him. But when he does, have the locker room, when he does, those initial few years as a manager, he's been very successful. He took Tampa literally from a last place team to a World Series in 1 year. He took the Cubs from a team that was a fringe playoff team to winning a World Series within the span of a couple of years. So even if he's only managing here for 3 or 4 years, if he can elevate the Phillies over that hump from being a 500 team to being a World Series contender, that's good enough for me.
Obviously, he has ties right now to the Angels. We assume that's probably where he will go. That being said, I do think he will be at least a desired target of the Phillies front office. You mentioned Girardi, who we've mentioned with the ties to Chicago at this point, and some of his interviews and talks. Where do you see him landing? Do you see him getting the opportunity here in Philadelphia, or do you see it pretty much being a Cubs team right now?
Well, obviously he's going to get a look from the Phillies, but yeah, I see him going to the Cubs. He played for them. I believe he was on their coaching staff for a little while. I could be wrong about that. But yes, he has a history in Chicago. They have a vacancy there. I think that Joe Girardi, you can pretty much pencil him in as being the Cubs manager next season.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think they're going to want to waste any time with the talent and core that they do. That was Bryce again in the background. We always keep the dog in studio now. But I don't think they're going to want to waste the core and talent that is there. One interesting thing about the Cubs is Chris Bryant, widely thought of as obviously a cornerstone of what that team has been and could be. People think that he's not going to be on the roster for the Cubs next year, and he's going to be somewhere else. Obviously, he grew up playing with Bryce Harper. They're very, very good friends. Do you think that there's a world that Chris Bryant is the third baseman of the Philadelphia Phillies next year?
Honestly, I think all these rumors are just the Cubs testing the water to see what they get from him or get for him. I don't see them actually parting ways. They still have a very talented team. I think they want to kind of run things back and see where they go with a new manager next year. And Chris Bryant is a big part of that. He's as big a part of that as Anthony Rizzo is out there. And Yeah, I think that with a new manager, they just want to see where things can go next year. Obviously, they're putting the rumors out there to see what teams would be willing to toss their way in exchange for Chris Bryant, but I just don't see anything actually coming to fruition there.
I think it's all about their money situation, and they've thrown out the name now, both Chris Bryant and Javi Baez, and two players that you would assume, I'm not moving for anything. But that's what happens when you're a team that's seeing your window close, and you have to start making financial decisions that doesn't hamper your ability to kind of get that second life, even if you're taking a year or two off within that span. So that's an interesting storyline to follow this offseason as well as to where he goes. Obviously, I think a trade package to acquire him pretty much depletes our already basically non-existent farm system. I would assume that it would probably be Spencer Howard and Alec Boehm, and then probably another few prospects as well. It's crazy to sit there and think what a deal like that may be. But it's obviously interesting, and it's a hell of a consolation prize if you don't sign Anthony Rendon. Anthony Rendon, while on that, was offered I think it was 7 years, 250, 275?
250, I believe.
All right, 250, something like that, $1 million contract from the Nationals. Well, obviously, we don't know the specifics on that. It sounds very Bryce Harper-like, where they handed him an envelope that said $300 million, but however much of it was deferred for, 75 years or something.
Ridiculous.
The Nats are nuts. That being said, he plays a more important position. He is... this year he took his game to a level that is not normal for Anthony Rendon. He hit 335, upped his power, led the majors in RBI. He's incredible. Do you think that is a sustainable number for him and a sustainable stat line, or do you think this is kind of just one of those years where things just kind of clicked for him and he'll come back down to earth?
Well, it's a contract year for him. He's playing for the big money. I don't think it's necessarily sustainable, but I think that he's a guy who can maintain a 300 average for years to come. He can be that 30-homer, 100 RBI guy. I don't see him going as high as, high 30s, low 40s home runs. I don't see him really being a consistent, 136 RBIs this year?
It was crazy, yeah, whatever.
I don't see him hitting that number consistently, but he's probably going to be between 100 and 110 every year. So, yeah, I don't see him having a number of years where he matches what he did this year, but I see him consistently being just below what he was this year, which is still a very, very good baseball player.
This year he's a borderline MVP candidate. Last night he was getting MVP chance almost every time he was at the plate. Obviously a really key plate appearance there in the 8th where he drew that walk against Hader. The place was as deafening as Washington can be, what a phony fan base, man. Nobody shows up there all year. They get their one-game wild card, and suddenly the entire goddamn city shows up. It's hilarious.
And they celebrate it like they won the World Series.
It's because they did basically win the World Series. Did you see the stat that they were 1-8 in their last 9 tries at trying to eliminate a team? That's embarrassing.
And probably would be 0-9 if the should-be NL MVP was able to play in that game. Is he at the very least, he doesn't botch that ball in right field.
Yeah, the ball did spin weird, but man, that was bad. And you probably weren't going to throw anyone out there anyway. It was going to score 2 runs. It was going to tie the game. That is what it is. That was horrifically bad. That was embarrassing. Which there was so much wrong with that. Let's jump into that game actually. So did you watch the game last night?
Yes, I watched it actually from beginning to end.
Well, you have to because it's a freaking baseball playoff game. Yeah. It's the best time of the entire year. So much. First of all, I took the Brewers in the under last night, so nailed it. Made I think 125 on that bet. Yeah, but we mentioned it. The Nats are first of all for baseball, and I'm going to say this for baseball. It's better that the Nats advanced because they are a better team and they will provide a better series in the next round than that of what the Brewers would. The Brewers have one pitcher and then have to bullpen you to death. And, I mean, that's great for 2019 baseball, I guess, which the ways that Craig Counsell's brilliant with his pen, like he just is. But still, that team's not winning the World Series. I'm not saying Washington is, but they have a far better chance at it than what the Brewers do. So it's better for baseball that they won. That being said, that ball did not hit hand first.
No, it was clearly off the knob of the bat.
Absolutely. For as slow as you can bring these images down to now, they sat there and they said, listen, and I get it because the call on field, same as what it would be in football, there wasn't enough evidence to overturn it to them. But shit, on the broadcast to me, man, it absolutely looks like it hits down on the barrel and then up on the hand and then away. Because if that ball comes in and hits you on the hand at 97 miles an hour, I'm sorry, it's fucking broken.
Yeah, it's a broken hand right there.
That's it. And especially if it hits you on the two small fingers there at the end where it nicked at, they're smashed. Like, they're absolutely broken. That was terrible. That was absolutely atrocious.
Yeah, and I don't know what angles the umpires had to look at in the replay that they got, but all we got on TV was the far side angle where you could see the ball deflect off the inside of the knob of the bat.
Yeah.
But you couldn't see really if it hit the hand first or if it hit the knob. You just had to judge by the bounce the ball took. I think that
the overhead look is the one that I liked.
Yeah, the overhead look, but they only showed that once.
They showed it twice.
Did they really?
Yeah.
I don't know if the umpires. I think that they had to have seen it if they showed it on TV. But
if we got it, they got it.
If they had some sort of an angle from behind the batter's back, and I think that would have clearly showed that the ball hit off the knob of the bat before it hit the hand, even if it's only a split second. Even if it's only a fraction of a second, it hit the knob of the bat before it hit the hand.
For much of that game, man, it was a very Milwaukee Brewer type of game. It was they had their couple home runs there, and Brandon Woodruff, that guy, man, he's so good.
Why did they take him out?
I think he was on short rest to begin with. I don't think that, and like I said, they've one starting pitcher. Like he kind of has to go like every 3 days for him, and just hope to God he gives him 4 innings.
He went less than 5. He went 4 2/3, and he gave up 2 hits.
I think he went 4 innings. I don't think he even pitched into that next inning. I can't remember.
I mean, if he's only given up 2 hits and 1 run, you got to leave him out there. I'm sorry, that's your best pitcher, and
yes. But their strength is their bullpen and the way that they manage those guys. All they need to do is essentially all you have to do is get to the 6th inning, because if you have to pitch 7 through 9 with Hader, like he can, theoretically, he was obviously not good.
He couldn't find the strike zone.
He was really overly amped up, man. He was really jerky, even more than usual on the mound.
Very Mitch Williams-like.
It was just weird watching. There's always a sense of like calm with him every time you see him pitch. Like, I would never use the word erratic to describe him. Like he's just, for someone who's got like an awkward-ish type of motion, it's smooth. Like everything was jerky and weird, and like in between pitches, like he was just skitsy. Like it was just very un-Josh Hader-like. It didn't make a lot of sense to me.
One thing that I noticed, especially when there are runners on base and he's pitching out of the stretch, he was constantly resetting his feet before he
that's kind of normal for him.
I mean, but he was doing it more so than he normally would. He looked very antsy out there.
He just didn't look right, and it's tough. But ordinarily, that's the way that they beat you. They just get to the 7th or 8th inning and then let him pitch a couple. It's just, and he's been basically a hit. I saw a stat that he had faced like 98 lefties in a row or something, and had allowed 1 freaking hit or something.
1 single?
Yeah, whatever it was.
He gave up 2 singles in an inning?
Yeah, and it was the first time all year, apparently, he led up 2 hits to left hand. It's insane.
The one that he made, the pitch that he made to Zimmerman was actually a really good pitch, and Zimmerman just got very lucky. He snapped his bat and was able to float it into center field for a base hit.
Yeah, really good base running on that too, by the way, to get to third base there. But look, man, I'll say again, I think that it's better for baseball and better for this next series that Washington advanced. I hate it. I would have so much rather seeing Washington lose, 3-1, like it was working out. But it was a very good opening game. I would say it was slow for the most part. It was bizarre to see Jesus, not Strasburg, Max Scherzer go out there and just take a poo in the first couple innings there. Like he just didn't. It's not even like he didn't look right. It was just his stuff just didn't look lively the way that it normally does. It didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, in the opening couple innings, he hung a couple pitches there, one to Grandal, one to Eric Thames.
Yep.
But that's another thing, though. You go out and you score 3 runs in the opening 2 innings against Max Scherzer. You got to keep the foot to the gas offensively. You can't go out there and score 3 runs in the first 2 innings against their ace pitcher and then just expect that that's going to be enough to win the ball game. No, you got to go out there. You got to add, 4, 5, 6 more runs. You got to go out there. You got to keep the offense going, keep the hits coming. They had an aggressive approach against Scherzer, and that's why they were able to have success against him in the first 2 innings. And then, I don't know, it seemed like their approach just changed. They became a little bit too patient at the plate, especially against Strasburg, and they couldn't get anything going after that.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like they couldn't. And like I said, it just a really, really pissed off that they advanced. But again, still better for baseball. They provide a better series for the next, and we'll see how that all goes. And we'll have shows on those as these series progress.
I'm just disappointed I won't be able to see that girl behind home plate.
Oh my god,
the girl that was there last year.
Yeah, she had season tickets last year. She was fantastic. Was it you that sent that text message to all of us last year in the group chat about that?
I think it probably was.
I think it was you.
I always notice that kind of stuff.
Oh, how do you not? Well, the broadcast, mentioned it like 3 times last year, and like the cameramans were like, "Yeah, this is the one.
Yeah,
this is the shot." But she was a babe. All right, so let's move into tonight's wild card game, which is. I am stoked for this game. I just 2 really smart organizations, 2 minor market teams. So you have Tampa Bay, and you have Oakland, and the pitching matchup is fantastic. You should have been Philly, Charlie Morton, who enters in with a 16-6 record and a 3.05 ERA, and then you have Minaya, who's coming off the Tommy John. He is 4-0 with a 1.21 ERA. This is going to be fantastic. Like this could be a very old school pitch match where you could see these guys go into the 8th or 9th. Probably not Minaya, but certainly with Charlie Morton.
Yeah, it's an interesting pitching matchup. Charlie Morton obviously had the injury here in Philadelphia, then went to Houston, and like you mentioned with Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander, was able to kind of reinvent his career a little bit there. And then going on to Tampa, he's been excellent ever since he went there. And then you have Sean Manaea, who nobody knew who he was until he threw a no-hitter against the Red Sox a couple of years ago. Or was that last season? It might have been last season.
It was last year before he hurt his elbow.
Yeah, and he did that, and
he's so good.
Came back from his injury this year, and he's been excellent. So
he's only thrown in 5 games, but like that kid's legit. Like I guess I shouldn't say that he'll go 8 or 9. He probably won't. But and they have a good bullpen too.
I'd see 6 innings out of him tonight.
5 or 6, yeah. It's just this is gonna be a dogfight. This is such a good pitcher's duel with 2 really, really good starting pitchers and 2 really good bullpens and 2 smart organizations. So
I think that the deciding factor tonight is that the A's have an offense that can rake. They can hit. Not the Rays, the Athletics. The Rays have their guys that can get on base. Tommy Pham's had a really nice season. Avisail Garcia's had a nice season. I think that they're a little bit more methodical offensively, more of a station-to-station offense, whereas the Athletics, they got Matt Chapman's a great home run hitter, Chris Davis, great home run hitter, but they've also got a number of guys mixed in there who can just get on base and do the little things offensively. I think that Oakland, being a more well-rounded offense, is probably going to end up winning this game.
You think Oakland takes it?
I think Oakland takes it.
All right, what do you think the final score is going to be for tonight's game?
It's going to be a close game. I could even see it going extra innings.
I thought last night was going to be the night, man, because you predicted how many deciding games going to extras? You said 3 games?
3 or 4.
3 or 4, yeah. So last week, Rob had mentioned that the depth of these types of playoffs, or this postseason and the teams that they have, that he could see elimination games, 3 or 4 elimination games going into extras this year. So you almost had it right on game 1.
Almost.
If
close.
a right fielder knew how to freaking field a ground ball.
Yeah, tonight I see it being a 5-4 game.
5-4?
Yeah.
All right, so let me see.
Walk-off home run, bottom of the 11th inning by Oakland.
Walk-off home run, bottom of the 11th.
Chris Davis.
I'm trying to find... All right, so the over-under is set at 7.5 runs for this game, too. So same as last night. 2 excellent pitchers, 2 excellent starting pitchers and bullpens. Over-under on this game on the 7.5 runs.
I'm going over.
You're going the over. So I took the under last night. I'm going to double up on that. I'm going to take the under again. I do not see 8 runs being scored by these two games, or by these two teams, excuse me. So you are taking the A's. I'm going to go with the Rays. They are the underdog on this. Let me see where the line's at. Run line, they're plus 1.5. So, I don't know, man. I think it's gonna be a dogfight. I don't know. I don't even care which team wins. Like usually I sit here and I poll for a team. But I genuinely don't give a shit. It's just gonna be such good baseball. So again, we'll update you guys with all different things for this year's postseason, since we have nothing to talk about for the Phillies yet, but we anticipate having a lot to talk about throughout this offseason. Should be very active from players and personnel, front office pieces, all alike. Let's just end this with just a little bit about Harper. What are your thoughts on his first season here in Philadelphia? Obviously, it was kind of slow power-wise to start, and he really, really came on in the second half. But just overall, when you look at his stat line and what he was able to do in his first year, I mean, nearly 260, 35, 36 home runs, whatever it was, 119 some RBI. Like he was really, really good and played an awesome right field defensively. What were your impressions of him as first year in Philadelphia Phillies uniform?
Love it. Slow start. I get that offensively the numbers weren't there for the first couple months of the season. I think that if he had been performing during those months, then we're talking season-ending numbers closer to 270, closer to 40 to 45 home runs, some more RBIs in there. But even when you consider that, the fact that he is able to hit 36 home runs, able to drive in a career high, 119 RBIs?
Something like that.
And he did that with a really inconsistent offense around him, and especially in the second half of the season, Rhys Hoskins, the guy who typically was ahead of him in the order, was literally doing jack shit. The fact that Bryce was able to put up the numbers that he was, given the circumstances, very impressive. And you just hope that next year the circumstances around him will be a little bit better, and that will lead to better numbers from him as well.
I think one of the things for me that was most notable, now I've always really liked Bryce Harper. I love the arrogance that he played the game with and his just insane intensity all the time. I loved his character and personality on and off the baseball field. But there was a question surrounding that coming here. That there was Washington was never really his team. He was the young guy. He was a superstar and the best player on the team, but it wasn't really his team. He hadn't really been looked upon to truly be a clubhouse leader. And he was coming into a situation where he was going to be that. And all throughout Harper's life, he was playing up ages. He may have always been the best player on the team, but I don't ever know that his leadership was really a quality that was ever really asked for him. And he got to be that here in Philadelphia. And we saw this really, really mature 26-year-old guy who came in here and he played every single day with a ton of intensity. Gene Segura and Cesar Hernandez are out there dogging it around bases sometimes, and in meaningless baseball games, Bryce Harper is firing, outfield assists and diving after baseballs and snagging a couple doubles in Washington, when the game's already out of reach, just trying to lift any type of life up that he possibly can. His final out, in his first year of a Phillies uniform, he flies out to the warning track and he's pissed the fuck off. Like, I love it, man. The guy cares so much, and it's infectious. And I can't wait for all of the pieces to be around him, not only from a player standpoint, but from a managerial and coaches standpoint, from a front office standpoint. I want my team to mirror that. I want my front office to mirror that. I want that fire and intensity. I want that accountability. I want everything that he brings, and I want that mirrored throughout a game day roster of 25, 26 next year. I want that from the coaches, and he deserves that. What an excellent first year, in my opinion, from Bryce Harper, considering all the circumstances of changing cities, having his first child, getting a new home, signing a contract that immediately makes him another level of villain to all of Major League Baseball. I thought it was really, really quality stuff from him.
Yeah, certainly. If you're the Phillies, you're looking to bring in some free agents. You're looking at the type of players who are the alpha dogs that Bryce Harper is. And we saw what that's all about. Like you said, busting it around the bases, giving 110% even when the games are out of reach. That's what you want to look for in every prospective free agent and even draft pick from this point on.
I agree. Do you have any final thoughts before we sign off on this one here?
My final thought is I'm just looking forward to an entertaining postseason.
Same.
And I think that the Phillies need to take a good hard look at every single team that's playing in October, and they need to model themselves after these teams that have made it to the postseason.
I agree, man. It's smart organizations are there. Smart, deep organizations. It's like I said, this is the best time of the year. There are NHL playoffs are amazing. The Stanley Cup Finals are fantastic, but baseball postseason is something else, man. It is. I don't know how people can sit here and think that it's not an entertaining product or that it's too slow. It's incredibly entertaining, and there's a ton of emotion. There's a ton of life behind it. While there isn't always necessarily that type of life and emotion behind regular season games in baseball as there would be in hockey and certainly in football, it's the postseason's a different animal here in the MLB, man. I absolutely love it. My final thought here, I have two. First of all, early next week, I'm really excited about it. I'm going to get Frank Klose on from 97.3 ESPN. Bryce, thank you for making another guest appearance here with the Shakes. Frank, if you guys don't follow his work, he has a radio show for, like I said, for ESPN. It goes on to YouTube as well. He's an excellent Twitter presence on Philadelphia, not only just Philadelphia Phillies, but Major League Baseball in general. So he's definitely a quality follow there. But it's going to be kind of a recap of the Philadelphia Phillies season this year, the ups, the downs. Obviously he's reported on different levels than we certainly can here at ANYP. So I'm certainly excited to get that type of a perspective. And then we're going to, hopefully we'll have a little bit more to talk about in terms of the direction of the franchise and what they're doing at the manager, at the coaches' positions, and certainly in the front office. But we're going to kind of take a look into the off-season. Wow, blanking on words right now as I'm staring at the dog on the off-season and what's kind of on the docket here for the Philadelphia Phillies and what they can do. And my second piece here is that for all of your postseason watching, you should you should 100% go to Just Food. It's 215-794-FOOD, 215-794-3663. Treat yourself, take it home. Visit our guy over there, Asian Rob, at either one of their in-store locations. You can go to the Del Val Market. It's at Del Val College in New Britain, or you can go to Bucks County or Buckingham Green Shopping Center in Bucks County, PA. Excuse me. And like I said, visit our guy, Asian Rob. Have him set you up with some trays to go out for family meals, whatever it is that you want. However many people are over at your place watching these games, or if it's just you, feel free to get a sandwich or an entree just for yourself. It is delicious, nevertheless. They also have a ton of different jams, a ton of different type of like seasoned popcorn snacks, all these weird shit that these rich people do. He's got it there, but for an affordable price. Fantastic food over there. Just Food. 215-794-FOOD. 215-794-3663. Treat yourself. Take it home. We have run our course on time here as Bryce is freaking the hell out trying to get out the studio. Obviously, he knows a squirrel is downstairs. There's some shit for him. Rob, any final thoughts here?
No, just looking forward to this postseason.
Right, I already asked you that. My bad. Say I'm all blanking right now. Be sure to rate and review the podcast. You can do that on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever, Google Play now, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to podcasts, we should be. Be sure to rate that. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know some things that you want us to talk about, because we'll talk about damn near anything here on this segment or any of our other segments. Also, go to our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. You can WhatsApp chat us now. It is 267-640-5523. The link for that is in the contact tab of our website. And you can follow me on Twitter. It's at Shane_me, the host of Kap We Trust. You can also, we think it's going to Kap We Trust. We have no idea what this is going to be called next week. And then you can follow Rob at radio_Rob and follow the podcast at ANY Podcast. Am I forgetting anything? I feel like I'm forgetting something.
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
I'm just going to hope not. What a
Bryce's,
terrible ending. He is very, very much so ready to get out of studio right now. I think it's because it's 600 degrees in the studio, and he's probably pissed off. So we're going to go for a run, try to work him out of his little sleep here. But that's going to be it for Kap We Trust. We will see you next week, like I said, with Frank Klose, which would be an awesome time and a really good conversation. Super excited about it. So we'll see you guys then.
Hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still have me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.